But at the same time, it's not a terrible thing to be in Puerto Vallarta. So we're here together today to enjoy our time while she's there doing her work. And I just want to remind you that oops, rats, that was exactly what I wanted to remind you of. Our vision here at Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living is awakening personal transformation. And our mission is teaching tools for positive change. So you know that throughout this year, our theme has been Your Joyous Life. And that's based on a book called The Happiness Project that we've been taking a chapter each month to focus on. And so this month's chapter is about passion. And so we've been looking at passion from the perspective that our passion, excuse me, is our purpose. That our passion calls us forward so that we can live our larger purpose. And so this month's goal in September is to pursue your passion. And so, as Steve Jobs said, the only way to do great work is to love what you do. And I want to talk today about 5 ways to pursue your passion without going broke or crazy. Now, these 2 guys are each pursuing their passion. One of them is on a motorcycle or a dirt bike on the road, and the other one is taking photos of him doing that. Both of them are pursuing their passion, but they're quite different in what they're doing. Would you agree? And so sometimes we have different desires that are our passion. 2 priests died and appeared at the pearly gates in front of St. Peter at the same time. And St. Peter greeted them warmly, and then he said, you know, I'd like to get you 2 guys settled now, but our computer's down. And we've really got a problem with it. It's going to take us about a week. So you're going to have to go back to Earth for about a week before we can process you, but you can't go back as priests. So, you know, what would you like to be? And the first priest said, well, I've always wanted to be an eagle soaring above the Rocky Mountains. And Peter says, so be it. And off flies the first priest. And then the second priest is thinking about it for a while, and he says, will any of this week count, St. Peter? And Peter says, no, like I said, the computer's down. There isn't any way we can keep track of what you're doing. And so the second priest says rather sheepishly, well, I've always wanted to be a stud. So be it, says St. Peter, and the second priest disappears. And about a week goes by, and the computer is fixed, and everything's running beautifully. And so God calls St. Peter in, and he says, it's time to recall those 2 priests. Will you have any trouble locating them? And St. Peter says, well, the first one should not be a problem because he's somewhere over the Rockies flying with the eagles. But the second one might prove to be more of a problem. And God says, really? Why is that? He says, well, because he's on a snow tire somewhere in North Dakota. Our passions and desires, you know, are great and meaningful for us, but we do have to be specific. Creative law doesn't have a sense of humor, nor does it have the capacity to interpret. So it tends to be very literal. And we need to then be specific about what it is that we're asking for as we're looking at moving toward our passions. So I want to talk to you today, and I'll come back to specificity a little bit later on, but I want to talk to you today about 5 ways to pursue your passion without going broke or crazy, because that's important. So the first thing we want to do is to trust and remember who we are. So we teach and believe in the science of mind, in Centers for Spiritual Living, that the essence of everything, everywhere, all the time, is God. That God is really all there is, and that God is not limited by anything, including what we might choose to call it. So you may use a different word. It may be the universe or infinite intelligence or whatever. But that, whatever that is, that energy that binds everything together, that is the essence of it all, that is an unlimited, in both its ability, in its resources, in its energy, in its focus. It's unlimited. And that unlimitedness is available to us as we draw upon it. So in just the same way that when you're really trying to remember something, like a person's name, and you're frustrated because you can't remember it in the conversation where you're referring to them with someone else, if you let go of it, that name will show up for you. Maybe not immediately, but it will show up for you, but it doesn't do it until you let it go. Now, the thing about letting go is that the conscious mind then stops trying to do the work, and it lets the problem go to the unlimited subconscious, which keeps working on it while we're doing everything else, and then delivers it to us when it finds it. So it may be funny when, somebody's name shows up. You could be doing something completely different when you suddenly say, Matt Damon, and everybody around you goes, what? But the point is that the retrieval system is always at work, and you can trust it. So we want to first know that creative law doesn't rest. You can let it be to do the work while you're going about other things. You can trust that source and remember that it's part of you. So when you send it out to do the work in bringing your opportunities for your passion to you, you don't have to be working on that every minute of the day and night yourself. Does that make sense? Okay. The second thing is synergy. Synergy means when things come together in a way that makes them larger than just adding them together. So as they come together, something bigger happens than you would expect. Synergy is what happens when we ask for and welcome support. Because when we try to do something alone, we don't generally have huge expertise in every area, which means that doing it alone wastes time and it wastes talent. With baseball players, there are a couple of schools of thought about training pitchers. One is that you want them to gain strength with all the different pitches, and so they practice everything so they can get stronger in the weak ones. The other school of thought is that you make them masters of the one pitch they're brilliant at so that they can strike everybody out. And then if they're not so good at the other pitches, who cares? They throw those in merely to surprise people on occasion. But they practice and master the ones they're best at, and they let the rest of the team practice the stuff that they're excellent at. So what we want to do is to invite people in to ask for and receive support, remembering that somebody knows how, and it may not be us. So in order to live our passion, we have to open up our space to invite more people into that synergy, to create a larger result than we have even yet imagined. Are you with me so far? Henry Ford wanted to get unbreakable, and by that I mean unshatterable glass for his new models. But he would not consult any of the experts because they all knew too many reasons why it couldn't be done. So he told his engineers, bring me eager young fellows who do not know the reasons why unbreakable glass cannot be made. Give this problem to these ambitious young fellows who think nothing is impossible. And he got unbreakable glass. And that's why the glass in cars, when they're in an accident, breaks into little squares instead of sharp shards that create more damage. It wasn't possible when he got the idea that he wanted it. I wish somebody would figure out a way to make the screen on my iPhone unbreakable or my iPad. That would be good. There must be a way, I'm just sure. So we've got trust and we've got synergy. And the next thing we want to bring into the equation is flow. Flow is part of what allows us to pursue our passion without going crazy. You see, 100% commitment is not equal to being engaged 24/7, 365 days of the year. That is a recipe for insanity. That's not commitment. So what we want to be able to do is to invite inspiration to come to us during times of rest and play, which gives us permission to rest and play. Now, how many of you get good ideas when you're driving? Or you get divine downloads when you're in the shower? Or sitting in the bathroom? Or when you're on vacation? I often get them at those kind of times, and I think that is because we do not have the conscious mind so completely focused on work at those moments. We've got our attention on driving, even if we're a little distracted. We've got our attention on our shower or whatever it might be. And that gives the universe an opportunity to sneak in there and plant great ideas because we're not engaging the brain in so much conscious work at that moment. So we actively become more productive when we take a break, when we let the subconscious go in search of those great ideas, when we're playing, when we're on vacation, when we're relaxing. So it's really important for us to take the time to refresh and rebalance, because broken health or a broken family is not a win-win. It's not a way to pursue and live our passion. Would you agree? Yeah, I didn't mean that as a rhetorical question. Would you agree? Yes. Yeah, so trust, remember who you are. Second, take advantage of synergy. Third, go with the flow. And fourth, utilize persistent patience. Persistent patience. Reverend Dr. Terry Cole Whitaker used to say, let go quickly of what clearly isn't working. Let go quickly of what clearly isn't working. Just as the trees that are beginning to turn for fall now, let go of their leaves when it's appropriate, and the leaf, when it's appropriate, lets go of the tree. It's time. It's time for the leaf to become something else. It's time for the tree to move into the next season. And there's no great argument about it. You don't see the leaves and the trees fussing over, disagreeing over when it's time. No, I'm not ready yet. Don't you dare let go of me. Or, let go, it's time for me to become, something else. They don't do that. They let go gracefully, and that's what we're invited to do. We want to let go of what isn't working and recognize that redirection is part of getting there. It used to be when we used maps where you could spread out a map and you could see the whole county. You could see how all the roads connected to each other. But now that we use GPS, you only get as much in front of you as you're managing at the moment, and you have to trust that there is a bigger map somewhere in the mind of your GPS if it's not right in front of your face. I find that a little disconcerting sometimes because I'd like to get the bigger picture. But from the standpoint of life, we wouldn't understand the bigger picture even if we could see it. So what we need is the part that's in front of us, partly because we can't comprehend what's coming yet, and partly because what's coming might scare us if we could really see it, because we don't understand it in context yet. So we need to trust that redirection is part of getting to that passion that we want to experience, and that we can allow those cosmic left turns and divine rewrites to come in to assist us and support us. So rather than thinking that this is terrible, this is awful, I'm lost, I'm off track, we can assume and include it as a blessing without losing sight of where we're headed. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, said in his book, This Thing Called You, do not delay your good by thinking that you have so much evil to overcome. And I think what he meant is interpreting our redirection as problems or obstacles or wrenches that have been thrown into our system, or that in some way God isn't supporting us or doesn't love us or is ignoring us and our pleas to live our passion, but rather that apparent evil is actually something that wants to help us in some way, to stretch us or to deliver something new to us. And we want to go ahead and cooperate with it even while we're keeping our end result in mind. So passion isn't an all or nothing game. In other words, many times we don't pursue our passion because we can't see any way to make a living from it. Does that make sense? Has anybody ever done or known somebody who delayed what they wanted to do because they couldn't imagine making a living at it, right? But our passion, we don't necessarily know if our passion is our vocation. What we do know is we need it in our lives to nourish and support us. We require that juice in our own development and in giving our own gifts. We require it. So whether it becomes the vocation or the work through which we make our living is really not the point. The point is recognizing what those gifts are and what that passion is and letting it back into our lives so that we begin to live from that overflow in the midst of our lives. And I'm going to give you an example And this has to do with the divine rewrites too. In the movie Gandhi, we see an episode that really took place where thousands of people had gathered to do a march, a SALT, S-A-L-T, march, because there was a tax on salt, which everybody needs to live, and they were protesting the high tax on salt. And Gandhi was there with Nehru, who was kind of his right-hand guy at that time, and they had got all these people gathered together to do this march, and Gandhi came to a deeper truth and decided to cancel it. These people had traveled from all these distances, and Nehru said to him, "You can't cancel it. Everybody's here to do the march. You've said this is how we're going to do this." And Gandhi said, "My commitment is to truth, not consistency." Now that's a high commitment, because he could lose his credibility, he could lose his followers, he could generate a lot of bad feeling doing something like that. But he wanted to be in alignment with his truth as he understood it. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, was greatly influenced by Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said, "A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds." And what he meant, I think, is that it isn't that consistency is bad, but to nitpick over being consistent over little fussy things can obstruct the larger vision and the beautiful passion that we're trying to pursue. So we want to let go when it's time to let go. William Shakespeare wrote in Act 1, Scene 1 of A Midsummer Night's Dream, "The course of true love never did run smooth." And what he was essentially saying in relationship to romantic love is that when there is true love, it sometimes has to weather ups and downs in order to come together. And the same with living our passions. It doesn't always show up exactly in the way that we think it should or we want it to, but that doesn't mean it isn't our true heart, or to follow it, as this beautiful altar that Carine Rosenblatt did this morning shows, the gift in the hands and the beautiful heart that's blossoming with the passion. So, so beautiful. Where's Carine? There she is. Thank you, Carine. It's gorgeous. So this expresses that life of passion that we're going for. And what we want to do then is to recognize that we want to emphasize the feeling of living the passion, not the form that we think it has to take. So this is the great example that I want to give you about this that is happening right now. My partner, my spouse Amanda, is not here with us this morning because she's on her way to New York City. And I want to tell you the story of why she's headed there today. When we got together some 20 plus years ago, Amanda had been a dancer and a choreographer, and she had stopped dancing. And she was a little overweight, and she was kind of frustrated with life as it happened, as it came about. That she didn't know what was next, she didn't know what she wanted to do, she wasn't feeling very satisfied with herself. And a friend of hers got into a discussion with her about what she loved, and she talked about dance. And this woman said, "Are you dancing? Are you choreographing? Are you doing anything like that?" She said, "No, I can't do all the moves anymore. My body won't do it, and I'm too old to perform." She said, "I really don't think that I would remember everything under the stress of live performance, so it doesn't really work for me to do it." And this friend said, "Well, who says you have to perform in front of people? Why can't you just start to dance again because you love it?" And so Amanda decided to do that. And so she started to go into the studio 3 days a week and just start dancing herself with a mirror and the bar and the open floor in the studio and just move to music. And she started to do that. And then she started to videotape it so she could see what she was doing and notice if she created a phrase she really liked, she could play with it more. And then she got an idea in Sonoma County that she wanted to do a production of dance as she had done in New York, but she knew she didn't want to do all the choreography for it, and she had to find dancers. So she started looking for dance classes for contemporary dance where she might find dancers to work with, and she found them, but she also found local choreographers in Sonoma County who were teaching and taking dance classes, who were contemporary or modern dance choreographers, not all the same style as she was, a lot of diversity. And she produced 8 years in a row dance concerts with from 4 to 8 different choreographers, including herself, producing, choreographing, and having their dances performed and videotaped. So she took some of the dances that she had choreographed and she put them on her website and she put them up on YouTube. And then we moved to Vancouver. And she thought maybe she was going to get the chance to work with professional dancers with her choreography. But nothing seemed to come together around that up there. So she continued to dance herself and made some deep connections with people that were doing ceramics, because that was something else. She's very creative. And she began making friends and doing that and having a great time. But she kept on dancing 3 days a week and doing the videotapes. Then she came back to Sonoma County, reconnected with some young dancers who were very trained, who had started a dance company in Healdsburg called Upside Dance, and began to work with them. That was the next available opportunity. She met them through another dance performance, a mutual friend who's a dancer, and so on. So you see how these connections are taking place, right? Last month, out of the blue, now this is, what, 20 years later? She's been pursuing this passion and letting it unfold and letting it direct her course, but bringing this juice into her life and into her experience. Last month, she got an email out of the blue from a woman she did not know, who is a producer for TED Talks. She is doing in New York in November a 6-day series, and 2 of the days are on War and Peace. She had seen a video on YouTube of one of Amanda's dances that had been choreographed and performed probably in 2008, called In the Mist, M-I-S-T, of Dying. You can still see it on YouTube. And in it, there's a duet between a young man and woman that is about a young soldier who's about to go off to war. And this TED Talks producer had seen that dance on YouTube and had been searching for Amanda and somehow found her email address. And she said, we want you to come to New York and work with some professional dancers so that this dance can be performed on these 2 days that we're doing the live TED Talks for the audiences in this off-Broadway theater in New York City and filming it for PBS. And so, because Amanda took dance in New York City when she lived there years ago and danced, she had been taking dance classes with a lot of other young people who are now the heads of dance companies in New York City, and she knows them. So she contacted these people and said, here's the opportunity. It's not paid except for expenses, but it's tremendous publicity. She has now 2 couples learning this dance from the Martha Graham II company, professionally trained dancers who have been learning the dance with the head of the Martha Graham II company who's training them from a video, a DVD that Amanda sent them of the dance. And they have learned it, and now she's going back this week to fine-tune it with them. They'll rehearse it in October, and she'll go back to New York in November, just before it's going to be filmed, and work with them again to get it completely ready for the filming. She'll be there for the live filming. And then it will be available to be seen. It will be broadcast, and it will be on YouTube. And this producer also sent her a link to another 5-minute dance performance that was done this way for one of the TED Talks events that has been on YouTube now and has had 3 million hits. I have always known that Amanda is tremendously talented and gifted, but it seemed as if no one was going to figure that out. And yet she kept pursuing her passion. Her vision has always been to work with professional dancers who have technique and can really do the choreography. And now she finally gets that opportunity. Yeah. So this is the perfect example for this morning of trusting, remembering who you are, of the synergy of bringing others in who can do the things to support the vision, and coming from a place of generosity, of looking for mutuality, and of paying attention to the best discernment. I mean, you do have to remember that if you build it, they will come is not really a good business plan. You do have to do your due diligence and take the steps that are in front of you. You don't just say, oh, well. But bringing the synergy in of those brilliant people, going with that flow, even when the left turns come about, persistently being patient as you pursue the goal, and emphasizing the feeling of what you want, not necessarily the form of how you think it should look. Maybe she wasn't ready before, but the universe has been getting her ready for 20 years. And if she hadn't been willing to start dancing herself 3 days a week just to get the juice in her life, none of this ever would have happened. So today, we want to be able to know that that passion that's inflamed within us of what we love is there for a reason. Even if it's just to bring the greater juice into our lives so that we serve better and enjoy our life in the world. Can you agree? So I invite you, if there's anything you've stopped doing for whatever reasons or excuses you thought you had, find a way. Begin to bring that juice back into your life now, because it will infuse the world with good. Namaste. Now, those are the ways that we pursue our passion without going broke or crazy. So, going deeper. Our statement for going deeper today is, I'm happy to know that life is already supporting me in moving toward my dream. And let's take that within right now. So let's just know together as we sit in this wholeness, in this abundance, that Spirit knows exactly what our passions are because it planted them there when it wanted to express as us. And Spirit is calling us right now to remember those passions and to let them come into our lives again now in whatever ways they can. To begin small, to allow that flame to live in us, to feed our life with joy and light, to light other lamps by that great juice that fills us. We take this in with such gratitude now, letting it be done in us with enthusiasm and with delight. So it is for me, so it is for each one of us in great gratitude right now as we let it go and let it be so. And so we say together, and so it is. Yes, and so it is. And so I want to invite Christine to come back up and join us now.